Dear friends, and very distinguished participants to this webinar, I would like to, first of all, to welcome all of you on behalf of the Luigi Einaudi Foundation, which is an organization member of the European Liberal Forum, and an organization which is partnering with Italian and international academic institutions in researches and initiatives on current political, socioeconomic, and geopolitical issues. The Foundation is profoundly committed to the promotion of fundamental freedoms, of human rights, of the rule of law, as defined by the European treaties and by the Atlantic Charter. Let me pinpoint this aspect, the aspect of our values, our common universal values as enshrined in these fundamental documents and the policy compass of our society, as our European and Italian society. It is therefore with deep satisfaction that we had also in the recent past a number of opportunities like this opportunity to organize webinar events in conjunction with the Jerusalem Center of Public Affairs. And today's discussion is again on an issue that we reckon as an issue of key importance for peace and stability in the Mediterranean region and much beyond. Let me especially thank for this meeting and for organizing this webinar my dear friend Ambassador Dore, President of the JCPA. I would like also to thank for their participation Dr. Yuval Steinitz, former Minister of Energy of Israel, Engineer Fabrizio Mattana, Executive Vice President, Gas Assets at Edison Italy SPA, to welcome Senior Deputy Director Noam, Dr. Noam Katz, Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Francesco de Palo, journalist and analyst, and Dottoressa Simona Benedettini, energy economist, our moderator, who is sitting next to me. And last but not least, let me thank very much Fiamma Nierestein, who is a member of JCPA and is also contributing to the activity and the international activities and program of the Luigi Einaudi Foundation. Fiamma, a friend of always, every time during my career, and really a person who is inspiring, has inspired, and will inspire our vision concerning a number of important international issues like those which we are living nowadays. The general framework we have to refer, we want to refer in this 1 hour discussion. It is what is happening in the Mediterranean, especially in the energy situation, in relation to the major crisis, the biggest and most dramatic crisis that Europe has been facing over the last 75 years since World War II, because of the war in Ukraine. The President of the Commission, EU Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, gave a very clear and explicit position of what is the common sense and the unity of Europe regarding this aspect. And this is a vision which is particularly important to remember in a discussion like the one we are having today, because it impacts, obviously, on the energy strategies that we have in front of us, but it's something that goes even further and deeper than the very practical question of energy supplies to the European continent and to European Union member states, and goes to the aspect of value, the aspect of which country, which population is the victim, and which government and which country is, very unfortunately, very sadly, the aggressor in this geopolitical reality. Let me quote just a few concepts, a few sentences that Ursula von der Leyen expressed in the important statement she made in Davos a few days ago. And I quote, "The playbook of Russia's aggression against Ukraine comes straight out of another century, treating millions of people not as human beings, but as faceless population to be moved or controlled or set as a buffer between military forces, trying to trample the aspiration of an entire nation with tanks. This is not just a matter of Ukraine's survival. This is not just an issue of European security. This is putting our whole international order into question. And that is why countering Russia's aggression is a task for the entire global community." And going more into the subject of the energy diversification, the diversification of energy supplies by the European countries, Mrs. von der Leyen explained what is the analysis. And it's very important that we are talking about this today because of the meeting of the European Council today and tomorrow in Brussels, which is going to show, of course, among many difficulties, and I suppose it's not difficult to foresee, also noticeable differences of position of interest in this discussion in the European Council. But the general picture is clear and solid in the sense that there is a common view, a deeply rooted position within the European Union and among EU member states that a much better coordination of energy policies in Europe is needed. And when I'm talking about coordination, it's not a light word, it is a coordination which must translate urgently, really should have been translated yesterday, but it must be translated absolutely today in a process of unifying the energy policies in Europe. There is no possibility of feeling sovereign in our countries, in our European countries, as everywhere in the world. No possibility of feeling free, of feeling free to choose, to decide what is going to be our governance, the freedom of our society, if the conditionality, and you say the blackmails concerning energy supplies remains in the hands of mostly in the hands of one single monopolistic countries, which is engaged so heavily in reviewing the international order and in changing the rules together with another country, unfortunately, another major countries of the European Union as well, in changing the rules and reviewing completely from his foundations the very basic elements of the international system. And again, to come to the statement of the President of the EU Commission, and she said, I quote again, "Diversification is another pillar of Repower EU." And she said, as we speak, Europe is concluding new agreements with reliable, trustworthy suppliers all over the world. And I agreed with President Biden to significantly step up LNG deliveries from the United States to the European Union. The amount will replace around about 1/3 of Russian gas we have today. And she is developing the idea, especially of LNG. But this is, of course, one of the possible routes. And from what I understand, I'm not, of course, in an official position to say that, but I think I'm in the position of being an observer, as much more authoritative and important observers are in JCPOA and also in Italy among the distinguished speakers in this panel. I think that not to be too much on a different line from the line that will hopefully emerge in this discussion, if I say that the Italian government, from the Italian perspective, the resources which can be provided by Eastern Mediterranean basins and existence of huge quantities of natural gas in that part of Mediterranean have become also, from an Italian perspective, a major priority. A major priority, even more so after February 24th. And although Prime Minister Draghi's government has rather successfully engaged in a widespread effort aimed to a fast replacement of a large share of Russian gas through a complex combination of measures, I believe that three basic questions remain. It will be very interesting to dwell on those questions today. How much, from where, how fast will Italy be able to import additional quantities of non-Russian gas in order to successfully complete the needed substitution? And even if an immediate and total ban proves to be impossible, the European Council today and tomorrow in Brussels will certainly be focused on that fact, and also on the fact that a true energy policy must define itself, because that has been long overdue. So I have taken note also concerning, more specifically, the EastMed's realization, the EastMed opportunities to our gas supplies differentiation. What has been said by, for instance, by German Chancellor Olaf Scholz last April 28th about the Germany position on this. And what was said previously by the European Commission 3 years ago, after having completed the pre-feasibility studies on the EastMed pipeline from Israel and Cyprus through Greece. This analysis made in between 2015 and 2018. And I've also in mind what was the further development and the meeting between the U.S. Undersecretary Ambassador Nuland at a time when she met, not very long ago, their counterparts in Turkey. So these are the statements that we have seen and read in the past. It will be interesting to have an update on what is the sense that they're making in the present situation, which is after February 24th. It is a completely different situation from the one on which certain assumptions about the Turkish position, about Western relations, European and American relations with Turkey, were suggesting before the Russian aggression to Crimea. Thank you very much again for your contribution. And with this in mind, I have now the pleasure to give the floor to Ambassador Dore. And after his statement, I would like to ask Simona Benedettini to moderate the discussion. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ambassador Terzi. It is always a pleasure to work with you. And I think now the coordination between Italian think tanks and an Israeli think tank has become ever more important in the exchange of ideas. There are basically two developments in the last number of years that have really changed the energy map for the Mediterranean and the Middle East, and I would say, and for Europe. One was the discovery of gas, of maritime gas in huge quantities going back to 2009 in the Eastern Mediterranean. And the second development have been the proposals to put forward a pipeline connecting the Eastern Med with Europe. I can tell you this, when I saw that a representative of Edison will be in this webinar, I recall, as being Director General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that Edison was sending us maps of pipelines back in 2015 to our embassy in Rome. So they have been on this case for a while, and it's very good that they have been. what is really necessary now for us to do is to look at how the gas will be extracted in the Mediterranean, in the Eastern Mediterranean, and perhaps even more importantly, how it will be transported. And that brings us back to the pipeline. Unfortunately, the Biden administration decided to pull back America's support for the pipeline idea. It was somewhat of a mystery to many of us why they did that. The pipeline does not require the American taxpayer to put forward funding for paying for it. But nonetheless, they did. There has been a bit of an ideological war over energy in which those who support renewable energy feel that extracting gas, feel that building up the whole gas industry around Eastern Mediterranean gas is not a good idea. And how this is resolved will determine what happens with our gas options. One other point and final point I'd like to make is that we also have to identify what are the problems, what are the challenges, and can we meet them? Israel is at peace with Egypt, which is a good thing. Israel is at peace with a growing number of countries in the Persian Gulf, which are not tied to this issue, but it shows a spread of general reconciliation between Israel and a large number of Arab states. But there is one power that is not moving in the direction of peaceful relations, and that's Iran. Iran is also a producer of natural gas, and it's something we pay attention to. But the Iranian factor is relevant because since at least 1989, since perhaps even earlier, the Iranians have built up a position of strength in Lebanon. And we hear voices coming out of Hezbollah that they want to challenge our presence in the Eastern Med and our various extraction methods. So we will have to deal with this growing challenge. One of the promising developments in the Eastern Med and from a geostrategic perspective has been the shift of Turkey from a country that was hostile to Israel to a country that is seeking ways of creating improved understanding with us. So all of these factors should be studied, brought together, and as research centers, I think we should be devoting more time and energy to these questions. I think the panel we have has those abilities, and I think you'll see us much more engaged in these issues in the period ahead. So without further ado, I will turn this over to our, I'll turn this discussion over to our next moderator. And I'm anxious to hear from all the participants what their initial conclusions are. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Gol. So let me thank, first of all, the Luigi Einaudi Foundation and the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs to inviting me to this stimulating opportunity of discussion. So I would like to start with the first question to Dr. Katz. So the recent REPowerEU plan of the European Commission consider the Eastern Mediterranean and Israel in particular a key partner to address the European independency from Russian gas. So my question is, what could be, according to your opinion, the role of Israel to design, and what are the benefits that you expect Europe as a whole could have by an increasing cooperation with Israel?
So thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Just to say, I'm the only one that I think that is still an active diplomat, not an expert that is sitting in a research institute. To the question, I think that Israel is in a unique position, and in fact, all the countries in the East Mediterranean are in a unique position, because it is clear that Europe would like to reduce its dependency on Russian gas, and they are looking for ways to diversify resources. And the fact that we have discovered resources and we become producers is something that brings Europe to look at the Mediterranean in a natural way as a supplier. And I would say that my government, the Minister of Energy, declared that we are ready to be part of that. Having said that, we need to understand that there are all kinds of limitations in the ability in the near future to be a real supplier for Europe. In the near future, we are limited first by quantities, but more than that, by the ability to deliver because we don't have enough conduction ways to bring gas to Europe. The ways that we have today that we can do that in the immediate term is by larger quantities through NLG. And the pipes that can bring gas into places that will transform that gas into NLG are in Egypt today. Because when we think about Israel, our ability is to supply through Egypt. So when we think about the immediate near future, it's about NLG. When we think about midterm, we need to think about pipes, and therefore the ideas of pipes are still in place. And you know that there is a research that is ongoing, the Poseidon mission, and we all hope to see what will be the results, because it will demand the involvement of the private sector that will have to build that. Now, we have to think also on the far future, and the far future of energy is going into green direction, and that's something that we should bear in mind. There are other types of energy that we have to develop and promote. People are speaking about the interconnector, it's very important. We speak about hydrogen possibilities in the future. The technology is not yet here, but in the meanwhile, in the midterm, that we need to promote, and that's something that we need to put in mind, the ability to build the connections through pipes. And of course, the EastMed is one of the viable options that is being checked.
Thank you very much, Mr. Katz. So, Dr. Steinitz, the relationship between Israel and Europe is a consolidated one in the field of energy, and the EastMed project is, I would say, more than a symbol of this relationship. During your tenure as energy minister, Israel had the merit to sign the intergovernmental agreement between Israel, Cyprus, and Greece. So why, according to your opinion, diplomacy was important at that time, and it is now more than before important to address the pipeline which will bring the gas from Israel to Europe, and how you consider that this pipeline could benefit energy transition both in Israel and in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all the ambassadors and the participants. But let me start with a short overview. When you look on the big map, the picture is quite clear. Europe doesn't want to remain totally dependent on Russia. The Northern Sea, the gas fields that were producing a lot of gas to Europe, that were developed, belong to Holland, to Britain, to Denmark, and even to a certain extent to Norway, are already depleting, and Europe needs new resources of gas. And the best option is really in the Eastern Mediterranean, because it seems to be the case that what was so far discovered in Israel about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and also in Cyprus and Egypt, it's just the beginning. And much more gas is waiting to be explored, discovered in the Eastern Mediterranean if drilling efforts, if exploration efforts will proceed. So there is an abundance of gas in the Eastern Mediterranean. And my overview, my general view is that the Eastern Mediterranean should become the replacement for the Eastern Sea. The Eastern Mediterranean should become the replacement for the depleting Northern Sea, and to a certain extent also to help Europe to free itself from being totally dependent on Russia or on one source in general. This was a picture that became crystal clear to me already in 2015 and 2016, when I started to do three things. First, to encourage new explorations and new discoveries in Israel, economic water in the Eastern Mediterranean in general, and working on three different channels of exporting gas from the Eastern Mediterranean to Europe. I mean, nowadays we are exporting gas to Jordan and Egypt already, but my dream, my ambition was to deliver gas from the Eastern Mediterranean, from Israel and from its neighbors directly to Europe. So I examined three ways to do so. And I think all the three were mentioned already. One is to do it through Egypt, to bring Israeli gas to Egypt, and then to use the two LNG facilities in the Nile Delta in order to send gas to Europe. This is already taking place for 2 years, but not in large quantities. We can double or even triple the quantity of Israeli gas going to Egypt. It's a short range and therefore liquefied and going to Europe as an LNG. The other option was to, and I began discussing it with the Turkish energy minister already in 2016, is to build a pipeline from Israel to Turkey, also for the Turkish market, but also to export some of the gas through Turkey, through the system already, the transmission system through Turkey, also to Greece and to Europe. I met Erdogan, Tayyip Erdogan at the White House in 2016, and we discussed this option, and this was already discussed then. But those two efforts were secondary channels. And the main thing was supposed to be the EastMed pipeline, the longest and deepest undersea pipelines that will stretch from Israel and Cyprus through the Eastern Mediterranean all the way to Greece and Italy, and will enable us to export gas directly from Israel and in the future also from Cyprus to Europe through Greece and Italy, mainly first to Greece and Italy themselves, but to Europe. This is a very ambitious project, but it is making sense. And really, as we know, the initial feasibility study that was conducted by Poseidon and paid for mainly by the European Union, by the Energy Commissioner then, Cañete, the former European Energy Commissioner, found that this is economically feasible and also technically feasible or possible. Two things delayed this important project. One was the corona that erupted more than 2 years ago, and the other was not very, the unwise decision in the European Union to include natural gas or to refer to natural gas like a fossil fuel, and to say that like oil and coal, natural gas should disappear, that renewable energies should replace natural gas. Today we know that this was quite stupid, because if you compare natural gas to coal or oil, for example, in producing electricity, you shift from coal to natural gas. We know it from the Israeli example. You reduce 90 or 92% of air pollution and 50% of carbon emission. So this is wonderful. But because of fanaticism and short-range thinking, there were 2 or 3 years that Europe was less enthusiastic or even a little bit reluctant to promote projects of natural gas, although when you shift from coal to natural gas, as I said, you reduce almost 100%, more than 90% of air pollution and 50% of carbon emission. Now Europe changed its mind and redefine natural gas as green energy, and it should be the case. And therefore, we are talking again about the EastMed. In my view, we can export more gas from Egypt, through Egypt and through Turkey, but the EastMed pipeline is the most important project. In the beginning, it will enable us to export 10 or 12 BCM annually, but then it will be cheaper, easier and cheapest to double or even to triple it. And then you can export 30 or 40 BCM through a system of pipeline across the Mediterranean. This will give Europe the best solution, and even more so to Italy and Greece. You have here 2 reliable countries, Israel and in the future also Cyprus. Both of them are members of the OECD, Western-style democracies that are not going to play with it and in order to blackmail or to intimidate somebody. An undersea pipeline is very secure because 2 kilometers below sea level, no terrorist can approach it. No submarine even can go that deep, not even close to that range. So you will have a secure source, stable, reliable and secure source of natural gas in the Eastern Mediterranean. Now, this is mutually dependent on each other. If you promote ways to export more gas to Europe, you encourage also new drillings in the Eastern Mediterranean. You encourage companies to continue to explore the EastMed basin. And if you explore more gas, of course, you encourage companies to invest in the pipeline or in the exporting facilities. So it's mutually dependent here. And therefore, we should move forward on all these fronts to promote the pipeline, the EastMed pipeline, but also pipeline to Turkey if possible, and enlarging the supplies, the additional pipelines, short-range pipelines from Israel to Egypt, to help us and the Cypriot and the Egyptian to encourage and to promote more drillings, more exploration efforts in the East Mediterranean basin, because probably what was discovered so far is just the tip of an iceberg. Much more is waiting to be discovered in this region. And this can be a revolution in Israel, in Israel also, but also in the European energy posture, at least for the next 30 years. I don't understand why the Americans withdrew their support of the project recently. Dore Gold was right to claim that actually we don't need them. But my view was to get American support. I think it's always good to have America supporting you and publicly supporting such projects. And therefore, I got this support both from Ernst Muniz under the Obama administration. He was Professor Ernst Muniz, the energy secretary of Obama, and later on, Rick Perry and Dan Borlett, the two energy ministers in the Republican Trump administration, also reiterated their vehement support to this project, to the EastMed pipeline project on behalf of the United States. I am not the energy minister in the last 10 months, and I don't know what happened, but I think I have heard that the Americans reconsider it and realize maybe that this was a mistake to withdraw their support, and I hope that they will support it again. With or without them, I think, speaking about not the short range, but medium and long range, it is vital to promote this East Mediterranean pipeline and also to encourage a new exploration in the East Mediterranean. Dore Ambassador Gold mentioned Iran. I want to tell you, you don't want to rely on Iran. It's going to be bad enough with Iran, because if you won't be careful, in 1 year or 2 years' time, Iran will get nuclear weapons. They are now already enriching uranium to 60% level. This is a very high level. They never before dared to enrich uranium beyond 20%. Now they are already enriching to 60%. You feel intimidated by the Russian nuclear power, and therefore you cannot interfere in the Ukraine. That was the argument of Biden, and it's a very reasonable, a very sound argument. Wait until the Ayatollahs, the Islamic zealots from Iran, will be able to intimidate both Athens, the Middle East, but also Europe, also Rome and Berlin and Paris and London with nuclear weapons. Because if you won't be careful, if you focus too much on the Ukraine, you are going to face a new devastating threat from Islamic zealots, from the Iranian Ayatollahs in 1 or 2 or 3 years' time. This is a very short range. So I want to conclude this and to tell you it is very promising, but we need now to encourage it and to encourage the efforts by the European Union. Of course, it should be such a pipeline, the EastMed pipeline, is supposed to be built by the private sector, by companies like Chevron or British Petroleum or Shell or Total, or some of those companies combined together, and of course Poseidon and Edison. But such a project needs the encouragement not just of Israel, but of the European Union, and even helping in financing it by the European Development Bank or something like that, because it was recognized as a project of common interest between Europe and Israel and other East Mediterranean countries. Last but not least, I want to mention you, because it was not mentioned yet, that I formed already 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, together with Tarek El Moula, the Egyptian energy minister, a very unique forum, the East Mediterranean Gas Forum in Cairo. It was my idea, but the Egyptian took upon themselves, to host it and to promote it. And this is a very important forum which combined together East Mediterranean countries, Israel and Arab countries, Egypt, Jordan, even the Palestinian Authority, European countries, Cyprus, Greece, Italy, and France, European Union as observers, also the United States. And this is, I think, a very good forum that enable us also to encourage energy cooperation in the Mediterranean. So thank you for having me, and the floor is yours again.
Thank you very much. Mr. De Palo, you are a third-party observer as being a journalist, but moreover, you are an expert of Greek politics. So I would like to know from you what is, according to your experience, the sentiment of Greece concerning the project. And I would like also to know whether you consider that so far there has been an adequate level of attention by the politics and the media on the projects and its benefits.
Well, thank you, everybody. First, pleasure for me, and special thanks to Fiamma Niederstein for this event. The future, in my opinion, is EastMed. The Greek it's very good situation for this pipeline, but we have many problems for this theme. Before the invasion of Crimea, the debate was open on how any European countries could begin to diversify the energy supply, which were the tire dependent of Russian sources. From 2040 to 2021, driven by Germany, the EU increased this purchase of gas and oil from Moscow instead of reducing them, or instead of imagining an alternative. The first step in Greece and in Europe and in the Mediterranean area is the TIP. The TIP is the first, the EastMed is the second, and is the future for me. The TIP gas pipeline capacity of 10 billion cubic meters. Today, about 6 are imported and will expand to 9 and 10, maybe 10 within the year. Is a first reaction more external to the EU than internal. Today, the TIP, now in Greece, it's very interesting. Before five years, satisfied 10% of the Italian needs, and there's therefore been a useful project. Through the TIP pipeline, Greece will be able to send the gas to Bulgaria and later also to the other Balkan countries. It's very good thing, in my opinion. In light of the technical and geopolitical results of the TIP, and after the sensational discovery of the Dore, Nor, Leviathan, and Glauco field in Egypt, Israel, and Cyprus, the need, the usefulness, exploiting those fields and bringing that gas to the central Mediterranean arose, and later through in the Europe. This is the basic idea of Eastern gas pipeline. Greece is very enthusiastic for this. It's the longest ever, and would carry gas from Israel to Salento in the south of Italy, Cyprus, Greece. It's for the peace, a Mediterranean peace is possible with the EastMed gas pipeline. Thanks to a 600 kilometers pipeline, Israeli gas would arrive in Cyprus. For there under the sea for 700 kilometers to Crete, where there could be a new discoveries by Exxon and Total, then connect to the Peloponnese and then to Italy. The big role is of EG Poseidon with the Greek DEPA and Edison, 15%. Snam, Italian player Snam, was all present. It is a very interesting cooperation, private, public, and European strategic for the future. The problem, who is the problem? We have many problems. Initially, the United States had said yes to this project, but since last autumn, they have changed their position so as not to irritate Turkey. In fact, Europe is buying more American LNG than in 2021, and after the sanction on Russia, these quantitatives will all increase. In Greece, American LNG arrives at the deposit island of Revitusa, and so also in the warehouse under construction in Alexandroupolis with the big platform. The REC, Regulatory Authority Advisor Committee, should be mentioned on this project, and it is the board of regulation of the signatory countries, with the also included Italian ARERA, very very important player. Why Greece is connected to Italy, and why communication and the newspaper in Greece is connected with the storytelling in Italy. In Italy, there are 3 regasifiers, but it's true to imitate Greece, which has decided to buy a mega floating platform. We could be docked off the coast of Sardinia to regasify the LNG bought from the USA. So the last word against the EastMed pipeline date back to a month ago by US Deputy Secretary Victoria Nuland, who visited Greece, said that EastMed is not priority for the United States, while for the EU and Israeli, it is intended. It's the first street for Italy, for the Mediterranean Sea, and for Israel. Parallel to the project, the East Mediterranean Gas Forum, EMGF, was born in Cairo in September 2020, with the aim of creating a structured dialogue and stable coordination between the Eastern Mediterranean countries, which are producer, consumers, and transit routes for natural gas. It is an international operating tool that will allow members to derive maximum economic benefit from existing gas field. I think that the cooperation, Israel, Italy, Egypt, Cyprus, Greek, it's a new street in this difficult moment, and we play a primary role in the forum, even after the strengthening of the energy security system in the Mediterranean Sea. This theme is very, very strategic for the geopolitical equilibrium in the whole area from Gibraltar to the Urals mountain. Even more so after the invasion of Ukraine and the realignment of the NATO, a key of many regional players, such the Turkey, which browser still plays alone, Ankara, is strongly opposed to the pipeline. But in this way, it still conditions Mediterranean policies after having done so in Syria and in Libya. This is another problem. Well, the forum, which boasts the support of the European Commission and the World Bank, has the status of the international organization right after the statute came into force. It is like the Mediterranean gas OPEC, created to coordinate the policies of Italy, Egypt, Greece, Cyprus, Israel, and Jordan of the new field in the Mediterranean. It's very, very basic. These fields have their natural outlet in the EastMed pipeline. Another street, very, very basic, it's forum, the private sector. The forum is technically supported by a working group called JAC, made of the major companies of 7 countries. So the Italian companies, Edison, Eni, Saipem, Snam. Snam is already partners of the Greek DESFA, another big street for this problem. The EastMed gas pipeline play a strategic role for the economic and geopolitical regions. At the moment, it is the option that brings the greatest economic and political advantage to the transport of gas from the Eastern Mediterranean to Europe, as shown by the study carried on the company Poseidon, which manages the project with an equal participation of 15% of Greek DEPA and Italian Edison. So the pipeline will have the record length, 1,300 kilometers, and will be divided into 11 subsections from Israel, Cyprus, Vasilikos in Cyprus, another 740 kilometers gas pipeline from Cyprus to Crete, Gulf of Patras, Peloponnese, and later the landing in Italy. All these will be accompanied by surveillance center, telecommunication, and remote control system for the theme security in the big area Mediterranean, as well as constant monitoring carried out jointly by the armed force of the three countries. Once completed, the pipeline will be as valuable and high-speed railway line. It's in Italy, we like autostrada, alta velocità. It will also guarantee energy partnership and thus strengthen the collaboration of the countries involved. And his were related to safety of gas pipeline opens. After the attack in Jeddah, a few kilometers from the Formula One Grand Prix, and after the severed cables in Norway, the alert for attacks on infrastructures increased, but is possible relation for the war in Ukraine and send a warning. It is clear that the pipeline do not have a rail protection. It is very complex to organize a patch in the sea, but in my opinion, it's plausible to imagine from here protecting them both with the preventive action and with the surveillance system and drones. Thank you for attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. De Palo. So, Mr. Formentini, you and your party promoted a resolution committing the Italian government to pursue the EastMed project and so to keep the peace with emergency. May I ask you please to share with us what were the motivations behind the resolution and to explain us why the project is so important independently from the current energy crisis, but overall for the energy security in Europe, but overall Italy. Thank you.
Thank you indeed. Thank you, Chairman Iresten, for the invitation. We are battling the Italian Parliament since 2019 to support EastMed. Francesco de Palo, the previous speaker, interviewed me for the magazine Formiche in December 2019. And I explained him that the support of the Italian government for the pipeline was not enough. It was not enough at the time and is not enough now. We have seen recently during the visit of the minister Giorgetti, a League member, some developments. He met Minister El Arhar, the Minister for Energy of Israel, and they agree on the importance of the EastMed pipeline. I've always believed in this pipeline. I call it the pipeline of democracies because it links three democracies, and it's a way to defend our democracies and to show to the world that we have to choose also physical link between our democracies. We have all seen what is happening in Ukraine after Russian invasion, and we have to restart to be proud to be part of the free world. That's the point, according to me, and the importance of the EastMed. EastMed was opposed at the Italian Parliament by many political parties, real ideological barriers. Now something is changing. Currently, it's under discussion, the resolution I presented at the Foreign Affairs Committee. And the 13th of June, we will hear Edison, and it will be the last hearing, and then we will vote. We hope that the Parliament can decide to support this project, a project supported also by the European Union and also financed by the European Union. Also, already 30 million arrived to for technical evaluation and studies for the project by the European Union. So it's really supported, it's really important, and it will change the situation in Eastern Mediterranean. And I do agree it will be a way to increase peace and stability in the area. We have recently seen that the attitude of Turkey towards Israel is changing. We hope it will help building the pipeline. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So you mentioned Edison, which is, one of the two key promoters of the project. So Mr. Mattana, as EVP gas assets of Edison, you follow the project since its very early stage of development. So could you please tell us why the project, comparing to other options currently on the table to address energy independence from Russia, presents more benefits and less costs, and so why it could be among the optimal options to be free from the Russian gas, but in general, because we don't have to forget that, the energy crisis is just, a moment of a broader process of energy transition. So why the project is crucial to address energy transition in Italy and in Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador Terzi and Ambassador Gold. Thank you for this invitation. I'm glad to contribute to the discussion with the point of view of the project promoter. So today I'm speaking as Edison, but I'm also the CEO of IGI Poseidon. So I'm following directly with our Greek colleagues the development of this project since many years. And I would like to contribute addressing some key points that are points that have been discussed and claimed, and are also part of the comments from US on the project. So I think they are very important. I will try to be quick, but I would like to address 6 main points. And the list of them is that the first is the technical feasibility. The second is the availability of resources. The third one is the economic viability. I want to just mention the point of the maturity that is key in the current situation. A comment on the competition with LNG that has been addressed previously as well, and then just a closing point on the timing. I will be very, very quick and straightforward, but I think it's important to provide all of you with what we think as, what I think as project promoter. So on technical feasibility, after many years of studies of engineering and surveys, and millions of euros spent, as has been mentioned, also co-financed by the European Commission, we can state that the project is technically feasible. The length of it has been mentioned is 2,000 kilometers overall. This total length is less than the Azeri interconnection, for example, is comparable with the Norwegian one. So it's nothing new. The main offshore section is 800 kilometers. It is shorter than, for example, Nord Stream offshore section, that is 1,200 kilometers overall, or shorter than Turk Stream, that is 900 kilometers. So even here, it's challenging. Offshore, 800 kilometers offshore is not easy, but it's feasible, has been done. The average water depth, okay, on the main section is around 2,200 meters depth. Also, this water depth is in line with what has been done in the Black Sea project, for example, Turk Stream. And the maximum water depth, around 3,000 meters, is just for 10 kilometers, and it's not something that has not been done in the past. We have pipelines and projects in the Gulf of Mexico, for example, that are even at higher water depths. So all in all the technical challenges have been studied, are under finalization in terms of detailed engineering, and none of them so far is a showstopper. About the resources, this is another key point that has been discussed. The resources are available. There is already a lot of production in Israel, and in the time frame of EastMed development and realization, additional resources will be available in Israel. From our discussion and studies, at least 20 BCM per year will be available by the next 3-4 years. We are speaking about incremental production from the existing fields, so from Leviathan, Tamar, and Karish and Tanin. And if we're able to build and finalize EastMed pipeline, this will be an enabler also for Cyprus discoveries that so far are there, but with an existing infrastructure close to the discoveries, will find an export route more convenient and economic. Economic viability, the total amount of the investment that all the participants are basically private investment, is estimated around 6 billion euros of capex. That's the last estimations. And this amount is not different from a total investment for different export routes. If you think about liquefaction plants, onshore liquefaction plants for similar amount of export, around 10 BCM per year, the amount of capex is the same. That and for floating, it's not the same figure, but if we speak about 10 BCM export, and if we consider the full chain of cost to bring gas from Israel to Italy, then we end up with a tariff for EastMed that is, according to our calculations and studies, more competitive than other export solutions. And this has been done so far without considering any support from Europe. As has been said, this will be, as a first hypothesis, private investments. Now the project, the company that is promoting the project is IGI Poseidon, but this, of course, in the moment of realization, is an open point and an open joint venture for the future companies that will be involved in the export. So the project is viable from the economic perspective. The tariff is competitive compared to other solution, and if Europe will support in some way, and there is a window of opportunity for that, because the project is PCI, is project of common interest, and in the current situation, this export route could be part of the solution for European needs. The first point I wanted to mention is maturity. This is a key element in the current situation, because whichever project of export we want to develop will have to face all the studies and the steps, the authorization processes that we have been working on for many years. So we can say that EastMed now is the most mature project. We have been under PCI level since 2013. Dr. Steinitz remember the many efforts done by Israel also to support on a political level this project. Now we are close to finalize the engineering part of the project. The project company is targeting to have all the conditions to take an FID, a final investment decision, by the end of 22, beginning of 23, and also the involvement of the main EPCI, the say construction companies, already started. So we are in discussion with them, and we know, especially in these days, that also the supply chain and construction process is not easy. In terms of competition with LNG, I think the competition with LNG is not an issue. Everybody's talking about LNG because it's flexible, because it can be available in the short term. That is true. The existing LNG facility in Egypt is the first solution, and is the first solution for the first term. but the capacity there is limited. We have 17 BCM per year export capacity. Half of it is in the hands of e-gas, so of Egypt, and Egypt is starving for gas. They need gas for their consumption. Therefore, we have capacity for export LNG by Egypt. It will be maximized, but the available resources in Israel are much higher than what can be exported by Egypt. And the second point is that, of course, LNG is flexible, but what Europe is now looking for is not flexibility, it's security. And LNG is going, we know very well that LNG is going when the price is the highest. So it's not a given that if you have LNG facility and regas terminal, the gas is going to you. Another specific point here is that on the economic perspective, having access to Israeli resources will provide Europe also with the possibility to have access to gas with a potential different price signal, as we know that also the economics of gas are key for European competitiveness, and Israeli resources can be a different price formula for Europe. And this is very important. Last point of the list is timing, because one of the key elements we have to address is when we will have this product ready. From a technical perspective, realization of the pipelines can be done in 4 years from the final investment decision. And for that reason, we said that the pipeline could be available by 2027. Of course, to do that, the company will need all the support also at political level, because this will be key to finalize also the permitting part, on which we are very well advanced. We have authorization for the landing point in Italy, and we will submit the environmental permitting process by June for Greece, Cyprus sections. So 4 years is feasible. Just to address your last point and your last questions, you spoke about long-term perspective. Well, we think that gas will be needed. Before 24th of February, probably the perspective was different, but in the current situation, 150 BCM per year of Russian gas will lack from Europe and has to be replaced. So we think 10 BCM or up to 20 BCM from EastMed pipeline will definitely be fundamental to guarantee security of supply of Greece, Italy, and Europe in general. And if in the picture of European energy strategy and energy transition, we foresee that the other no fossil gas will be ready and available as hydrogen, then the project company as IGI Poseidon, we are working on EastMed Poseidon to be hydrogen ready when it will be built. This will allow us to have a pipeline that is built for the security of supply of gas when gas is needed. And if H2 hydrogen availability will be commercial and industrially available, the infrastructure will be ready to bring also hydrogen for that. So to conclude, I think that for European security of supply, EastMed has unique futures. It is a project bringing new available resources to a new route that has no transit through non-European countries. And this is key, has been said by the distinguished colleagues for security supply. It can benefit of an advanced maturity, like no other project has today, but it needs global political support to accelerate and promote a Mediterranean cooperation. I think the project EastMed Poseidon is a great opportunity for the diversification needs at European level, and it's part of the solution that is not in competition with other projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mattana. So I will leave the floor to Ambassador Terzi in order to conclude.
Thank you very much to our moderator, Simona Benedettini, and I believe it has been a discussion and a tour de table, very, very interesting. Let me really thank, starting my appreciation words with Honorable Formentini, who has given us the picture about the Italian parliamentary debate and the perspective that this debate, this effort, which has been going on for a number of years, will be finally and decisively favorable in the next few days and weeks, thanks to the contribution also that the minister belonging to the same but influential member of the government, Minister Giorgetti, and to the parliamentary action of Honorable Formentini and his colleagues, most engaged in a sincere effort and a needed effort to assure an important contribution to the decision of the government and support the government in this strategy of diversification of energy supplies for Italy and for Europe. So I think the elements about the parliamentary debate in Italy are quite important. As very important have been the analysis and the master plan somehow, which has been outlined by Engineer Mattana, the different element explained very in a succinct way, but very clearly about the major elements and components of this discussion, which are, of course, availability, reliability from a technical point of view, the timing, and the supplies, and the competition aspect, which were referring in his words to the really quantities which to many discussants also in other fora have not been completely understood from some reports that we have been reading, and they need to be presented and explained in details, as Engineer Mattana has been able to do this morning, and that's a particularly appreciative contribution to our discussion. But I believe that there were 2 or 3 other elements, other fil rouge of this discussion, which are extremely important. The positive geopolitical impact of Eastern Mediterranean resources, not only in terms of diversification of energy imports in Europe, and not only in terms of these energy highways, which has been mentioned by Francesco de Palo in his interesting contribution, but also in the sense that these resources and the way of making them available to European partners and also to regional partners like Egypt and Turkey are going to be an element of rapprochement, of getting closer politically and also in terms of communication, availability and use, the idea of using common resources for assuring better stability and better security to the people of Middle East and the Eastern Mediterranean. And I think these elements have been explained very, very well by Ambassador Dore, first of all, former Minister Yuval Steinitz, Dr. Noam Katz, in their own capacity and even official capacity. Dr. Katz, thank you for giving us the official position, very interesting position of the Israeli government. And that has been also an element, the reference which have been made by some of you to the importance of the Cairo Forum on Eastern Mediterranean, EMGF, European Mediterranean Gas Forum, which has this specific character of being a common partnership between private and public sector, and also between suppliers and consumers, sharing their interests and their opportunities for cooperation. So I think that forum is obviously a point of reference also for other think tanks, academic discussion and studies, like the one we have been promoting at Fondazione Einaudi and JCPA. And it is something that will be part of a network of efforts to move the public opinion and the respective governments in the right direction. That is, as it was said, the fact that energy must be used as an element of assuring freedom of people and democratic system of government, and can be helped in that sense, that the infrastructure that we are building must also refer to that fundamental compass in foreign policy. Thank you very much to all of you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was most helpful for my next position, for sure, as Israel new ambassador to Greece in the near future. I learned a lot. Thank you very much.
Good luck to you. I just want to brief you with a very positive announcement that just now was published by the Israeli Ministry of Energy, that Minister Karine El-Ahrar decided to cancel her miserable decision to not to allow any more license for new exploration, at least for the meantime, in the Israeli economic water. So now she decided to reverse it and to encourage a new license for new exploration. And this is, of course, very, very important. So this is a happy note to conclude with a happy note.
Thank you very much, Steinitz, and see all of you in other contexts, I hope, and as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.